Hey there, beautiful people. This is Gina Robinson, and you are listening to the Renew Podcast. You are in the right place and always welcome here. All right, ladies, welcome back to the Renew Podcast. I've got some of my very good friends with me today, and Lauren has joined back.
I'm back.
She is back. Oh, gosh. We love it.
Can't get rid of me that easy.
I know. So we told you guys that she would be on for a few bonus episodes, but just kidding. She is back for a full episode. You guys loved our friendship episodes that we have done in the past. And gosh, do you ever get tired of talking about friends and friendships? No. So there's a couple of things that are on our heart today, but specifically we have our friend Theresa Golden with us today.
Yay!
From Tennessee. We call her Tennessee Theresa. that is her nickname.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
If you know, you know.
Guys, she went to Tennessee and got spicy. No, really, she is here for some work-related things. We just, as we're recording this, we just had Day of Renewal, and she was one of our session leaders talking about boundaries and love and limits. And so we're actually going to hit on some of that today. But you guys really love the Friendship Podcast. So back by popular demand, we are here for it today, and we're going to talk about some things. Theresa, a lot of this is really going to bring out some things that you've been really dealing with since your move to Tennessee.
Yeah.
And us as friends,
Yeah.
I mean, we've kind of been in that transition with you.
Absolutely.
Moving. We were used to having you right here.
Yeah. Yep.
And I know I'm thinking about people that are listening today. You know, a lot of times you can be friends with people in your workplace because of proximity, because you're in the same area, or maybe it's the season of life or stage of life. And I will say I'm the oldest one here today. I'm not happy about it, but I am.
Can you repeat that again?
I know. They will not let me live it down. I think, Theresa, aren't you the youngest?
No.
Lauren
Lauren is the youngest.
Still in my 40s.
No. Yeah.
Our friend Theresa just
Just hit the 50 club.
The 50
Yeah.
club. Yeah.
Yeah, she's not.
She's 50.
So.
You see that fake smile?
I'm in denial.
There's just some things that take a little time.
Yes.
So, but today we're going to talk about adult friendships,
Yeah.
and we're calling it The Struggle is Real.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of things. So, Lauren, when we were kind of talking about this, she goes, I would really love to hear Theresa share about the whole situation of you moving and being separated from those you really like, friendships you love most. And how you cultivated friendships, but also how you dealt with conflict and a couple other things. And your entire family moved. So you've got children. Will you kind of revisit that for people that are listening, like the ages of your kids, just so they can kind of regroup and remember all the things? Because I can't remember it.
I know. Well, yeah. And the last time we did this, I was living here. So it was before the move. And little did I know that we would be moving a state away. But it was very difficult. I mean, we had lived here for 23 years and raised our kids here. I thought we were going to retire here and grow old here. And so it was a huge thing. And obviously it was huge in the sense that, all of us were so close, and all of my friends are here, and just being involved in everything, supper clubs and church things and all those. So it was very difficult. But, we were all in that boat in our family. We've got 3 boys. And we've got Hayes is 17 and Cade is 19 now. And this was 2 years ago. So at the time it was 15, 18, and 22, I think. And So, Hayes is still in high school, so he was moving high schools. Cade was at ECU. He transferred to the University of Tennessee. And then Xander and his wife, because he's married, they actually ended up coming several months later. So it was a transition for everybody in the family. And I will say that it had it's good and bad, but it was like a fresh slate. We were starting over. I had a friend there that one of the reasons why we moved was because of a college friend that asked Shane to come work with them. And so but nobody else, no family, no anything.
Yeah.
So it was really hard. And thankfully, I got to stay working with my work family remotely. Mm-hmm. So that was important. It was probably the only consistent thing in my life at the time. But so, it was really hard to get integrated into the community. And I'm thankful actually that Hayes was still in high school, because as moms, like we know, a lot of those connections and friends come from our kids.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I have thought about it many times. If we had gone after he had graduated, I think it would have been a little bit more difficult to get plugged in. But he plays basketball. And so I started, getting involved at school and those types of things. So that helped, but it wasn't without its challenges. As adults, making friends can be difficult because it's tricky. You've got family, you've got responsibility, and all of the things.
Well, and in this stage of life and our ages, most of us have already developed our core friends. Yes. And, it's when your kids are a lot younger, like when they're toddlers in elementary, some of those friendships start that young, when your kids are that young and are developed along the way. So there's so much history moving to that town, and then your kids, being in the basketball world, and you do photography. So that kept you kind of engaged too, which is great. But, you guys were living in an apartment.
Yes.
So let's don't forget that.
Yes. And that's huge. The struggle was really real.
Built some character in
there. Yeah. It didn't make the transition easier, that's for sure.
Well, and I feel like there's probably people listening today that have been in transitions with friendships because this kind of thing happens a lot when people graduate from college, because people go their separate ways. They're starting their professional careers or trying to find what that is. And so thinking about, even like myself now, thinking about, okay, well, who am I still friends with that I was friends with in college? And I know you can only count those on your fingers too. Like there's not, people don't realize, it's life or death, we feel like, in high school, and then we go to college.
Yeah.
And so in this stage of life that you're in, I mean, people already had their friends. So I think it's appropriate to talk about some of the struggles that you had so people can relate to that. Because sometimes people don't want to let you in their circle. And so how did you develop friendships? Like, what did that look like being a state away?
Well, it was really hard because we moved to a very small community. There's one high school in the town that we live in,
and we thought Greenville was small.
Yeah, and that's not even a large. Hayes actually went from Conley to there, and it's not even half the size.
Wow.
So it was a huge difference. And we joke that he lives in High School Musical, because it's like this little small town, everybody goes to the football games, So everybody grew up there. Their grandparents their parents graduated from there. Their grandparents graduated from there. Like it's a generational thing. So that was a struggle. And we were not really readily accepted into it. It was obviously difficult. Anybody who's had kids in sports knows this, that it's a hard thing to break into a new community like that, because you've already got your star athletes, you've already got your main five.
Yeah.
So it was a struggle, and Hayes was a freshman, and he came in, and it breaking into that circle was hard for him, and it was hard for me too. Just as the mom, people didn't just come up to you and were like, befriend you.
Yeah.
So I'll be honest, that first year I sat by myself in the bleachers, and Shane was working a lot. And but when he was there, obviously I had somebody, but there were a lot of times it was just me going by myself, sitting by myself. And I'm a very relational person, so that was hard. It was kind of, I'm not used to that. I'm used to walking in Greenville. You walk around, you go to the store, you see 20 people, And so it was a real struggle. But like you said, the photography, I just started, taking pictures at the games, and I started trying to find ways to contribute, but at the same time, by contributing, I feel like it helped me get to know people and to kind of, speak their language in a sense. It provides something that, made everybody happy, and it just
kind of a non-threatening way.
Yeah. And it's just hey, here, I want to do this for you. And so I think
you really were giving yourself away at that point.
Yeah. And it was really just trying to find a place, I think, because when you go from a place you've been your whole life, or not your whole life, well, adult, 23 years, you've kind of established that place. And then when you go somewhere new, it's just trying to find that again.
Well, the first year, like you were saying, you spent a lot of time alone, and you're working remote. So that's alone. It makes me think a lot about.
That was a big transition.
That makes me think about all those students during COVID that were doing education online. It's a very, so finding ways to connect and get out. However, Tennessee was not as shut down as North Carolina was.
Yeah.
I do remember that because I would be like, what?
Yeah.
What is happening? What is happening in Tennessee?
Totally different. Yeah.
So that was an advantage too, because things were not quite as shut down. But the other thing I was just kind of thinking about through is something that I think the Lord used to develop relationships was when you decided, okay, we're going to build a house instead of buy a house. That was a process. And I just think that part's sweet because you met a friend through that whole process who you still have coffee with now some. So talk about that a little bit.
That was, well, if anybody's who built a house, that.
They're still married, guys.
It is not for the faint of heart. It is definitely, well, all of you have built houses, so And it is, aside from the fact that I was still trying to transition into this new world, we took on probably the most stressful thing you can possibly take on. And that's build a house. And so we found these builders. They were Christians. They're actually from North Carolina. And so we hired them to build our house. And through it, I became friends with the wife. And the stress of the build and all that goes into that, it really put a strain on that friendship, obviously. And we talk about it now because we are past that. We went through a period of time where we kind of had to just not talk because, she was seeing it from one side and I was seeing it from another. And if she were sitting right here, she would say the same thing. And it was very difficult. And she was one of my only friends at the time. So it was kind of like, oh, but it was really sweet because I feel like God worked in her life and God worked in my life through that. Even she said after we finished the build and we were like, let's go have coffee and talk about this. And I think that's a hard thing for adults friendships is to actually talk about those hard times. And I will say that's the one thing about her that I appreciate so much was that she was willing to sit down and talk about that struggle, and both of us take some blame in that. And we both were, knew that at the time it was not a healthy thing for us. And I think taking that break and being able to remove ourselves from it and then be able to come back, I think that was so important for us. And now we're great. We are able to get together and we're able to, she lives an hour away. So
Yeah.
it's not like we can do it
Y'all
all the time.
have to meet up now.
We do. It has to be very intentional. But
that's even that
Yeah.
is so good that y'all were able to do that. I feel like Nikki wants to ask a question about conflict because you're going, and then
I'm just trying to clear my throat because obviously I'm having issues over here. So no, I don't have anything to say. Keep going, G. You just called me out. Nothing new here.
She's like, Nikki, you haven't talked in a while. Come on.
No, I have a million. I have a lot of questions, so I don't want to hog all the time. So, Lauren, do you have something?
Well, I had written that down in the notes because when I go back and I think through, which I should have probably re-listened to it, honestly. But one of the things I remember us talking about in the last couple episodes that we did is I remember, Theresa, you being vocal about, hey, I'm kind of a slow burn. So for me, I don't necessarily make, deep friendships quickly. And it takes me a while to really, warm up to being open about a friendship. And I mean, I can so relate to that myself. And so I was just curious because I'm thinking through, and I only have my own perspective, which is I'm from Greenville, I've lived here my entire life. And that's all I know. And so in my mind, I'm thinking through gosh, what would I do? Because I'm not an extrovert. I'm not somebody that, wants to just go hang out in community just to hang out in community. And so I think I can totally see what you're saying about having a kid in school, because there are some things, especially in athletics, that just happen because of proximity. So yes, I think that's why in the notes I was like, I hope Theresa will share, because I just think we have conversations here at Open Door when we meet new people and they're not from here. And oftentimes I've heard this, people on the other side of it say, Greenville's hard to get to break into circles. And I'm always like, really? And I think that's because my whole family lives here.
Right.
I'm just so used to, like you said, going to the store, seeing people, not even, thinking twice about it, which has its advantages and disadvantages.
Right.
However, that's why talking to you over the last couple of years and hearing some of the challenges and knowing that the first year was really tough and I would think would be incredibly lonely at times. And so that's why I put you on the spot in our notes.
Yeah.
Well, it was, and you're right. I am a very slow burn when it comes to friendships. I don't dive right in. And that, honestly, it's interesting because probably two of my closest friends over there are ones that started a little bit with conflict. And because another one of my friends that has really become one of my closest friends, we laugh about this now, and she would say this too, but we did not talk we did not talk, and we were kind of, I don't want to say we were pit against each other, but there was a little bit of people told me she didn't like me and people told her she, which in reality, I don't think any of that was really true, but it did. So, but now after we started working together and helping with the basketball team and everything, we realized that, we actually got along really great.
Yeah.
And
so who was it in those friendships? Who fought for it? Who was the first to step out and then why? What?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I will say with the one friendship, it was it was honestly, it's more of a mutual, that was more of a proximity thing. Because we actually ended up, we were put together on a team, not a team, but we were put together to work and help with the team. And so we started to find out that we worked really well together. She was really good at some things and I was really good at some things. And so it naturally there was no fight for, control of something. It was more of a, wow, we really work well together. And I'll just say, she's brutally honest, and I love that. You know that. Like, I love it. Like, I love the brutal honesty. And so I think that was more of a mutual. I will say for the other friendship, I will say that I did not fight for that one. I will say that she did more of the, and I don't know if you remember me telling you, but when all that was happening, I said, I feel like God is telling me not to fight for this friendship. And I didn't know what it meant at the time. And looking back on it, I feel like it was because he wanted us to take that break. I think he wanted us to, because she had reached out several times trying to fix it. And I just was like, I can't right now. And I just felt like he was saying, don't fight for it. And looking back, even she will say that it was the best thing that we did take that break because she was able to assess some things and I was able to assess some things. And then when we came back together, we were able to work it out and be fine. So, yeah.
So there was some point, though, that you felt led to go back, though.
Yes, but I will say she reached out first.
Wow.
She reached out first and said, we had completed the build. We were in the house and she said, hey, I know we're not, I shouldn't reach out, but I just wanted to see if you would like to meet for coffee. And I was like, yeah. I would love to do that. And when we sat down, it was just a really sweet time of
everything.
It was it was because I think we both took ownership of that situation, which is not easy to do. But it helped that she was willing to do that as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, so in that situation, I would say in a story, everything worked out great.
Yeah. That's really great.
That's not always the case. And I think that's really hard I think God created us, he created us to be nurturing and helpers in our families. And so when things don't work out, I think sometimes it's hard. I know it can be for me because I am super relational and extrovert, but I also want resolution. So I want something I want to close the window. I don't like just something just kind of finagling out there and not knowing, all right, is this over? Are things okay? Or are we just going in different directions? Because all those things are not bad. It's just that you have to define and sometimes you might not know for a while, kind of what happened. Anyway, I say all that with conflict, women have a hard time, and I think anytime is letting things go. And I can think about that with our children and a lot of different things. So in that situation, you guys really did let it go for a period of time.
Yes. And I honestly did not know that we would come back together. I was, I just had to be at peace with that. And at the time, I just knew what I felt the Holy Spirit was telling me, and I didn't know what it meant. But I do, yes, at that point, I didn't know if we'd ever be able to resolve this.
What is that saying that sometimes friends are like reasons, seasons, and
some for a reason, season, and a lifetime.
In lifetime.
And I didn't know. Yeah, you didn't know if that was for a reason or a season, or if this was going to go past that.
Because it's just interesting because a lady in our church came up to me recently and she said, "Hey, I was working at my part-time job and this lady came up to me and I told her where I went to church and she goes, 'Oh, do you know Gina?' And she was like, 'Well, yeah.' And she goes, 'Well, how do you know her?' She would have never thought our paths would have crossed, and our kids played travel ball together, basketball. And then I was like, you talked to Christy?" So it was like how interesting that was for totally a reason. Our kids were on the same team, and we would have never connected otherwise. Our paths would have never crossed. And it was just, it was fun hearing her talk about that time that we had together, because our kids were, teenagers, which is not a fun season. And it's not always a fun season in parenting.
Don't say.
So, yeah. So this is not a parenting episode, but we are adding that in.
That's right.
That's for free.
Yeah.
Totally free. But anyway, I just appreciate you sharing that, because I think there's not just people that have moved, but people that are in transition and friendships, period. And cultivating friendships at our age can be hard. And for people living in small towns, letting you in their circle, it usually just takes one person, that's willing to do that. So I love that story, because I remember that was a rough time.
Yes, but you all helped a lot.
Well, tell us, because we want to be
Right we are.
Yeah, you did. Affirm us a little bit.
You did. I would not have made it through that time. I mean, that first year was so hard because I didn't want to leave here. And so I said this, I think the other day, but I literally felt like I went kicking and screaming. I did not want to go. But the fact that I had you guys, and I think I called you one time from a Walmart parking lot. I was picking up groceries and I just cried. And I was like, she was the first person that came to mind, and I called her and it was so bad. But
being on this end, it was just as bad, because I'm a fixer naturally, and that was something I couldn't fix. I couldn't even lay my hands on her. I couldn't, but it was just like, okay, I'm here for you. And if I can recall, I mean, it was friendship and things like that. I think I encouraged you find one person to go have coffee with. Just find somebody.
Yeah.
Because my fear was that she was going to go there and be alone. And y'all know me, I don't like being alone. And all I could
Lauren
think,
and I don't mind it. Hey guys, we don't mind it
and
at
you
all.
checked up on me too. Like when I told you that I had coffee, you were like, "Oh, that's so good."
Yeah. And for me, I mean, like that upset me that you were so upset. But I think just challenging each other of, hey, do the hard thing. Yeah. Because that's not easy for you. No. Just to go pick some, because you are an introvert. You like friends.
I am. I'm relational, but I am not somebody who's just going to go up to people.
Well, I mean, that you say often that you're an ambivert, which is like I can extrovert when I feel like it and need to and want to, but that tank kind of runs quick.
Yes. I have to recharge.
Yeah, I have to recharge. As soon as you started talking about that and you were in the Walmart parking lot, I was about to say, all right, who's the feeler out of the four of these? Nikki. Let's call Mercy.
That's absolutely true. Yeah.
I'd have been like, all right, let's get your stuff together. All right, come on. No,
put your big girl pants call her.
I mean,
or text.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I mean well, but I'm
really?
Yeah.
Really? Do you?
I do. I mean well, guys.
But there's a place for tough love too.
That's right.
There's a place for that.
Oh, we
too.
know. Because if there's tough love in the room, I get it from G. But it's okay.
Teresa says that she likes brutal honesty. So here I am. No, if it wasn't for Jesus, I would be a wreck. So thankfully, he's toned me down.
We would all
bit.
be a wreck.
All right, Nikki and I are getting ready to fight.
No, she knows my love for her is big. So.
But as soon as you said that, I'm like, she ain't called me.
Yep. No, I knew who to call. Even though she's the one that gives the most, you tease the most.
What?
Oh
Me?
my, yes,
No.
yes.
Let's play this video that
I
recorded from last night.
Let's not talk about my
Guys,
parking.
no, we have to say we were going to a restaurant last night, and here she is driving us, and cannot
I'm always the
parallel
chauffeur.
park.
Always.
Like cannot parallel park.
I
And so we were
cannot
giving her a
parallel
hard time,
park.
like,
Okay, that's a
get out
confession
of the
take
car
over.
and
that
let
I
me
have.
do it.
Yes. No, I was not because I'm also a 3 and I wasn't going to let you win.
That's when you totally it rises
So I was
up.
bound and determined I was going to park somewhere. Now I didn't have to parallel park, but it was tricky.
Yeah, she just
And
backed
Nikki-
in.
And they were in the back seat all.
I videoed the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I mean, Lauren and I were-
She will video it and then it'll show up maybe 2 months later,
Yeah.
and then you just have to laugh all over again.
it's
more
proof.
joyful.
It's
I mean, you
proof.
gotta laugh.
Well, you sent it to Day during strap winning. I was not going to. I was like, and you're like, why didn't you open it? Because.
Oh my gosh. I love that.
We
So
kind of got sidetracked.
Yeah.
G. Sorry.
Yeah.
that was good content right there. That was
I say all
very
that
good.
to say though that you are the teaser, but I do always know that you will be there for me if
Yeah.
I need it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All of you will.
I will too. Just leave
She's
me a
just the
message.
softest.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm bad about phone calls. I don't,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily like I know some people love them and
Yeah.
that's their mode of communication. I'm more like, hey, I'm a texter or I'm face to face. And I realize in this context, obviously that was challenging. I was thinking back with where we were at just within working relationships. And so I technically saw her face once a week
Right.
through Zoom because we had a
Yeah.
weekly team meeting. So I did for the first year, I would
Yes.
say definitely, or first however many months it was.
You were able to lay your
Yes.
I
eyes
did
on her.
feel like
Yeah.
I got to see
Yeah.
her
Yeah.
Mhm.
more so than probably what y'all had. But
Yeah.
I'm thinking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm terrible about phone calls. Terrible.
No, but
I would be a terrible long distance friend. I'm not great.
But I will say that helped a lot was
Lauren's
was
gonna
having
go to therapy
that.
over
I
this.
know. I mean,
I'm just kidding.
There's a lot there.
No, but that helped a lot.
Yeah.
Even just having something like that to be able to connect with you and the team and just having that. We're in such I can't imagine. I mean, the technology that we have now is so much easier to stay up,
Yep.
catch up and stay up to date with people.
So, I mean, we've talked about intentionality. We've talked about vulnerability, which is all those with friendship is so important. But I want to talk about, this is good. This episode may be going a little long, but I think we need to talk about this part, is talking about expectations in friendships. So in transition, one of the things is navigating the long distance friendship, but also if you're that person listening today and it's not a long distance friendship, but it is a friendship in transition, intentionality, vulnerability. We talked about, unmet expectations and expectations. And then different personalities. So we already really talked about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Like what would have happened in that situation? So I just I'm going to take a little bit of a detour. So I have a really good friend, and it makes me think of your situation, who we were, I still consider her one of my very good friends, because if 2:00 in the morning I was in a crisis and I called her, she would be at my doorstep. And she lives in Raleigh. And I think I shared that with you, Theresa, because she was my roommate in college, and you have formative years during that time of like trying to figure out being an adult. And then when she moved, her family is Christians and she's raised her children, and it's been sweet. But the other day I was like, you know what? I haven't talked to her in a while. And so I texted her and it just started a conversation. And she was like, and I was telling her about my son moving recently and buying a house. And so I was like, when I'll call you and we'll go to lunch the next time I'm there. But that makes me accountable for it because we've talked about it. But that's like the intentionality. I don't expect her to call me or put me on her calendar, but if it works out. And I just think, when you're in long distance relationships, we talked about this a little bit, is you need to keep short accounts regardless, and gracious, because you don't always know specifically in long distance what's going on under the surface unless you can have a long conversation. Like you called Nikki, and so she got the full thing. But if you're not calling the person, or you might not even have any idea what's happening. Yeah. And so I think it's making space for that, which you really have to decide, is it important to you? And that comes down to the intentionality and like, do you want to continue this friendship? Because you can't continue a friendship with somebody long distance if you're not connecting somehow. Yeah. So, I mean, I think some people think, oh, we've just been friends for so long, and they're going to move, and we're just going to be friends still. There's just there's no way, because there's just no way that can happen without, And so I think that's where expectations get a little quirky. Yeah, because I may be fine with not talking for 2 or 3 months. Nikki over there, she would think that I had died.
Oh, I would cry. Like, she can go 3 months, but I'd be calling her probably in a week if I haven't heard from her. But I think that's the different personalities and what we need. Oh, yes, I am the sensitive one, and Gina, and we have to have regular talks here and there, but I don't want to be the needy one and unhealthy. I want it to be healthy, but I know for me to be healthy, I have to be honest. And it doesn't mean that Nikki gets her way. It just means that I'm honest with her and we're honest with each other, and then there's no offense. Because there can be an offense that comes up, but I know that comes from the enemy. And it's like, that's not reality. Like in my heart, I know things, what I'm feeling isn't true.
Yeah. Well, we've all talked about this with our emotions. Emotions are absolutely real, and the whole reason we get in trouble with them is we don't process them. Or that's what happens to me. So I don't all right, let's just sit in this a moment instead of just kind of powering through. And that's when obviously you can crash after that. But many people, I'm just thinking about Open Door Church right now. We have so many different departments and things going on, and with the campuses, Lauren growing, and Nikki is on the education side a lot. And so for me, I compartmentalize pretty good, but there are times so I can go, hey, I'm just work, and then I'm let's get it on the calendar. That's me. And then and sometimes I feel like that my heart can be, I'm trying to find the word, guys. I feel like my heart can be, I'm very critical on myself. So if someone's disappointed in me, I can take it to I'll go catastrophic, on myself. So if I'm already feeling bad or that I'm disappointing somebody, even though I know maybe I'm doing the right thing at the moment, but it still might not feel good, like Nikki's saying.
Well, I think that when you and I talked last time, I believe the first podcast we did, there was a conflict with Gina and I. And that's just the way it is sometimes. If you're family and you love each other, there's going to be conflict. You have to figure it out. But I would say that, it's unhealthy if I'm looking at Gina and not realizing she's going through something and that I'm like a jealous It's not that, because I remember remember looking at you that day and saying, I am so happy that you're going, you're getting the help you need. I'm probably telling a little too much, but you have been walking through some healing the last, year? And that has taken a lot of time for her. But meanwhile, I was missing out on something and missed her. Like it's not, I mean, but I was so happy and am so happy when people are getting the help, and especially, my best friend over there. So anyway, I think you and I are really good about hashing things out.
Yeah, and personalities.
And that goes back to the honesty, like being honest in your friendships.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of friendships aren't honest with each other.
Yeah.
I think that because they are afraid to offend or that the friendship's going to be different. And so it's good that you're talking through those things.
And independence is a real thing. So me being an only child, I didn't really do life in the family dynamic with another person.
Yeah.
And then probably someone else listening today could think that same thing if their sibling years were far apart. They, sometimes you feel like you are the only child because they were born, 8 years or 10 before you. But for me, I didn't. And so I did, I really did play the parent role in my family. And so it's very easy for me to power through and go. So I am very aware that I do it, but I also know that it's weird that you can be an extrovert and need to recharge. So I am an extrovert, but I need recharging a lot. Like I realize that I've got to kind of sit back and go, okay, I just need some time. To process that. So anyway, but that's my life. Anybody want to share theirs?
Did I just put you on blast? I'm really sorry.
So speaking of vulnerability, if you didn't sign up for it, Gina just did it.
But I think the good thing about, and I've said this before about the four of us, I think it's been really good going to the expectations. I feel like we all realize and recognize first of all, our families come first. And I think that's one of the hardest parts of adult friendship is that you are, you have a family, you've got kids, you've got a husband. They have to come first.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you've got friends that may need you, and sometimes people don't understand that, and they don't understand why are you not here for me, and so I know that can be a conflict. Or you've got a situation where you've got a married with family friend, and then you've got a single friend with no kids, and they're not in the same season, and so it's very hard to understand.
Yeah.
So I love that about our friendship is that I feel like with the four of us, we've always understood that if someone couldn't make it to the beach or to dinner or whatever because of a family obligation, whether it be sports or whatever, we totally get it.
Yeah.
And not just in a, okay, I understand just saying the words, we actually understand.
Nikki's laughing and it's distracting.
So you cannot put these two together. So they're not allowed to sit together.
I have a question if I can.
Good. Divert.
Depends on who it is too.
Before I abort this mission.
Abort.
Have you? Let me bring some context. So. Like I said earlier, I'm from here. I've never lived anywhere else. And so I don't know what it's like to be on the other side of coming back here to a place that you lived for so long. And I remember when our best friends lived in Colorado, they would come back into town because their family still lived here. They would come back into town for holidays or other things or vacations. And it was like I understood as being the friend of like, hey, you need to go see. And it was, one of the parents was divorced. And so they had all these family, commitments and places they were trying to be, all wrapped up within, a very short amount of time. And so being on the other side of it, Aaron and I were just grateful for any time. I'm like, if you want to come over for an hour, we will drop everything and make time. And so I would think, which is why I don't want to assume, but do you feel that pressure of every time you come here, oh my gosh, I got to see this person, this person, this person. And I know you leave here being like, oh my gosh, I'm going to hermit for like a week.
I know. I will say I run hard when I come to Down. There's really not.
You just said that this morning.
I know. There's not a minute of my day while I'm here that is not accounted for. Like there is something going on, which is what I want. I mean, I come to town knowing that I am not going to sleep for however long I'm there. I'll have minimal sleep and I'm going to be exhausted and probably overstimulated. But I know it's for a short time and I want to soak in all of that. So I will say I'm probably the one that overschedules me more than anybody else because I am trying to hit all
Gina.
the people.
Yes.
And it does. But at the same time, there's always people that I didn't get to see or,
I feel like you're always possibly disappointing somebody.
Yes.
So
well, when you've lived somewhere for 23 years, you've been through a lot of life with a lot of people. And so you do feel that, you really want to see them all. So it is hard. I try to, but at the same time, I try to keep the people that are closest to me have priority.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that at another time, but the circle is so important. And so that it goes by priority. And then I try to fit in as much else as I can.
Yeah.
And there is, before we kind of end today, there is a lot of truth to what even that you said about the circle, when we're going to get into that in the next episode. But the older you get, it really is true. Your circle does get smaller.
Yes.
It doesn't mean you're not doing things that are connecting you to people or you're not around people, because you are. You may even pick up extra hobbies or different things you're enjoying doing in this season of your life. But definitely it gets thinner, but not in a bad way. Usually that word has a bad connotation to it, but thinner meaning the friendships should be richer, better, more vulnerable, more intentional. So I do want to encourage the women that are listening that may be in their 20s or 30s. 30s were really hard for me. And so I have a lot of compassion for people that are raising young children and maybe you're in their 30s. But if you're in your 20s and you're like, man, this is really hard. Like, how do you figure out who is a friend? Because people are just trying to be adults. And like, what does that mean? And defining their faith apart from their parents. And
I heard a quote about the 30s, that the 30s are where friendships go to die.
Ooh, that's good.
And
that's what it felt
truth
like.
to it.
That's going to be an episode.
But there's truth to it, because that is the time of life where your kids are small. They're in all the things. Sometimes you have multiple kids in
Very
different
demanding.
age. Yes, it's a very demanding time. So
that is definitely for another episode. But I literally lost 2 friends in my 30s for a season. And that was some of the hardest loss and grief I've ever been through. So with that being said, that quote is true. So, and it's tough, but I feel like I matured a lot and I understand myself better and some unhealth that was in me too. So I don't want to ever go through it again. But I definitely learned some things about myself that I wouldn't have known if I had been through that. Well, Theresa, thank you for being with us.
I've enjoyed it.
And Nikki will be around. She's not going anywhere, guys. She's going to be around.
What does that mean? What does that mean? I am like, what are you really thinking
What
there?
are you saying?
She's saying that. She's like, does she really being sincere? What I mean is Nikki lives in Blackjack and she ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
And
one day I may surprise you guys and
Don't
to
do
the
that.
beach.
Don't do
yeah, well, look, that's
Just
only
kidding.
an hour and a half down the road. We're
That's
not
right.
worried.
Yeah. We'll just come visit you.
I know. Well, we appreciate you guys listening. We look forward to just coming back with you and sharing some more thoughts. But once again, if you have any questions, I'm sure this may have triggered some people. Maybe your current relationships or questions, follow-ups. Please just let us pray for you. I'd love to pray for someone that's going through a hard time because I know what that feels like, and it's rough sometimes trying to figure out those seasons. So renew@opendoorchurch.com. You can email us. Lauren and I would love to hear from you. Megan Haggard is my co-host currently now, and so she has some wonderful wisdom too because she is fresh in those years.
She's definitely the baby of
Yes,
this
I
group.
know. I feel like she could really, and she's Mercy too. So, y'all love her. And so anything else that you guys need, just know that we're here. We love to be praying for you, and we'll see you next time.